CDC has found 3 million children have picked up e-cigarette smoking in the last year, and that's up from 2014. Catch Global Foundation and the UT School of Public Health are working to curb that trend. Our Victoria Moranin shows us how a new program could help kids catch their breath.
According to the CDC, more than 3 million kids have picked up the habit of smoking e-cigarettes last year. Now, that's a pretty alarming rate. So we have Duncan Van Dusen here with Catch Global Foundation. So tell us a little bit about this initiative to combat that number.
Yeah, so we created a program called Catch My Breath, and the purpose of Catch My Breath is to address this public health emergency that 10 times more children are smoking e-cigarettes than were just 5 years ago. And the reason that's significant is because most e-cigarettes contain nicotine, and nicotine is known to be highly addictive, and it's known to damage a developing brain. Most people's brain isn't fully developed until they're about 25 years old, so kids that are 11 to 14 years old are very, very susceptible to the dangers of nicotine. And the final reason is there's no other program on the market that actually addresses e-cigarettes specifically, and kids and parents don't have the facts. Well, we're targeting middle schoolers because that's the age when they're very susceptible to media influences, very susceptible to peer pressure, and it's right around 8th or 9th grade that usage starts to skyrocket. So we want to get to kids primarily in 6th and 7th grade before they get to the phase where lots of kids are experimenting. We want to give them the facts and give them the reasons not to try.
Tell us your findings.
Right, so we did a pilot in 26 schools in 5 states around the country, including 3 here in Central Texas, and we noticed that the program significantly increased the knowledge that kids have about e-cigarettes and the health dangers. It also decreased their susceptibility because it made them more aware of the deceptive and seductive advertising techniques, made it more aware of peer pressure. We found that the kids liked the program, which was really important. And most importantly, we found that 86% of kids said, in their own words, that they would be less likely to try e-cigarettes as a result of having done the program. So that was great.
So I guess you want to get them young before they even start high school, right?
Yeah, because considering, like, when I spoke with Dr. Kelder here earlier, some of them have been picking it up earlier than high school. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. One of the reasons we created Catch My Breath for middle school students is that we find that they start using them as young as maybe even 5th grade, but then 6th and 7th, between 7th and 8th grade is when it really shoots up. So what we want to do is give kids the tools they need to resist the peer pressure and the media glamour, you might say, to using e-cigarettes.
Well, considering that the CDC reported that about 3 million kids of that age picked up the habit last year, what do you have to say about that?
Well, you know, I'd say that's an epidemic, and what I mean is there's been a 10-fold increase in the last 5 years of middle school and high school use of e-cigarettes. And while I'm happy that regular cigarette use is going down, e-cigarette use is shooting way up, and e-cigarettes have nicotine. Nicotine is addictive, and nicotine causes more harmful consequences to our brain when we're young. When the brain is maturing and developing, it interferes with normal growth and development. So we definitely don't want that.
All right, so some people might argue, it's like, all right, so well, at least I'm not smoking cigarettes. Some people would argue that e-cigs are the safer bet. Would you agree with that?
Well, you know, the jury's not out exactly on e-cigarettes because we don't know everything that's in them yet. Manufacturers are not compelled to tell us what's in an e-cigarette. So while we absolutely know that smoking is bad, and there's thousands of chemicals and other constituents that cause cancer, and that's probably not the case with these cigarettes, we just don't know enough. And what we do know is that they're not completely safe.
It seems these kids are starting younger and younger.
Yeah, that's right, Todd. That's why Catch Global is trying to catch them before they start the habit. So Duncan, tell us a little bit about how this pilot has been going so far.
Yeah, great. So we had 26 schools in 5 different states around the country last spring test the program, and 3 of them were actually right here in Central Texas. We had one in Austin ISD, Webb Middle School, one in Del Valle ISD, and one in Round Rock ISD. And we had a number of great findings. So the first thing was we significantly increased the knowledge that kids have about e-cigarettes and the harmful health effects of e-cigarettes. And knowledge is really the beginning of any behavior change. Secondly, we found that they decreased their susceptibility to using the products because they were more aware of the deceptive advertising techniques and they were more aware of peer pressures. The third thing was that they had fun, which is always really important. And the fourth thing, and I think the most important finding, was 86% of the kids who did the program said they were less likely to use e-cigarettes as a result of having done the program.
All right, so what would you say is the most common misconception then, since we're talking about?
Well, one very common misconception is that e-cigarette vapor is mostly water. And the word vapor in that context is very, very misleading because, in fact, there's very little water vapor in what you inhale and exhale from e-cigarettes. And they're not nearly as safe as kids think.
All right, so what's your next step then?
Well, our next step is we're distributing the program to the 10,000 catch schools and educational sites that we have around the country. And we've also been working with a lot of state and local health departments here in Texas and in other states. A lot of these departments are coming to us asking for the program because there's no other e-cigarette program on the market, and they really want to get something out to schools to deal with this public health epidemic.
So tell us a little bit about, it's not just like up to the kids to decide to not use e-cigarettes. Parents will have to be involved too, right?
Absolutely. In any effort to reduce or prevent either tobacco use or e-cigarette use has to have parent involvement. So I would suggest to parents that first of all become aware. E-cigarettes are new, and there's a few things you need to know about them. And one is that they contain nicotine. And two is that the nicotine has harmful effects on your child's brain. And three is that nicotine can cross the placenta, and so for pregnant women, nicotine is really bad for them. So are they less harmful than cigarettes? They probably are, because we haven't proven they're cancer causing, but they're not harmless, and they're not harmless because of the nicotine for the most part.
All right, so do you think like programs like Catch My Breath would help?
Absolutely. We created Catch My Breath because there's been a tenfold increase in e-cigarette use amongst kids, and I'm really concerned that we made so much progress over the last 30 years in reducing the rate of tobacco use with kids that it's now going to shoot back up, and we'll have a problem again.
All right, so after the pilot program, you've seen the results. Do you think, would you say you're optimistic that it's going to curb the problem, or it's too early to tell?
Well, it's a little early to tell, but our pilot tests were extremely encouraging results. I mean, we got great comments from teachers and from kids. They liked the program. Teachers felt it was culturally appropriate. They felt that it worked. But the very best answer is when the kids said in their own words that they're less likely to use e-cigarettes because they took the program. They now felt prepared to resist the peer pressure, because, parents, you need to know that someday someone's going to offer your child a puff on an e-cigarette. And the question is, what are they going to do? So are they going to say no, or are they going to say yes to the cherry or the other flavors? So they're very attractive, and the marketing and social media is making them attractive. So we need to prepare kids to be able to, gracefully say no without losing status in their peer group.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dr. Keller. There's a lot of involvement here, and it's not just up to the kids, the parents too, and schools can participate in this program.
The UT School of Public Health started a program to educate middle schoolers about the dangers of e-cigarettes. It's called Catch My Breath. The CDC found that 3 million kids picked up the habit last year. Victoria Moranin is learning more about it. They used to think that, e-cigarettes were a great alternative to regular smoking,
Yeah, but apparently that's not the case, Todd. So we have Duncan here with the Catch Global Foundation. So tell us a little bit about this initiative that you have for middle school students.
Yeah, you bet. So it's called Catch My Breath. And the reason we created Catch My Breath is, first of all, e-cigarette use has gone up tenfold among youth just in the last 5 years, which is pretty alarming. And second of all, most e-cigarettes contain nicotine, which is known to be very harmful to the developing brain. And then the third reason is amazingly, there's no other e-cigarette focused program that's available to middle schoolers now. So those are the reasons we created the program.
There's middle schoolers. Why middle schoolers?
Yeah, well, that's a good question too. So really, the use of e-cigarettes is getting going around 8th and 9th grade. That's when you see the big step up in use. So our goal, since this is a prevention program, was to go to the kids right before that, so 6th and 7th grade, and really hit them with the facts and the awareness before they get highly tempted by the media and by their peers to try the product.
Or so how does it work exactly? Let's say a school decided to participate.
Yeah, great. So there's several components to it. One is the curriculum itself. So it's 6 lessons, 30 minutes per lesson. So it's a total of 3 hours of programming. And then there are evaluation tools, signage, teacher training, parent materials, etc. So we flesh out the curriculum with a number of other program materials.
All right, well, thank you so much, Duncan. That sounds like a pretty intensive program, Todd.
Yeah, start them when they're young. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
There are 11 Texas middle schools that have taken part in the program so far. For more information, you can head over to the website